Welcome to the Hockey Writers Prospect Corner, a show with our top prospects writing crew, bringing you the latest news, analysis, scouting reports, mocks, rankings, and much more. From the World Juniors to the NHL draft floor, from the farm to the NHL, our team covers everything that happens in the world of prospects. So sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready for Prospect Corner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Prospect Corner presented by the Hockey Writers. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the World Juniors once again, upcoming. This is our second deep dive. If you missed last week's episode, we talked about Sweden and Finland. This week, we'll talk about Canada and the United States. We are all Canadian, so we're all very excited about this. We'll have lots to say. I'm your host, Logan Horn, and today I am joined by my co-hosts and fellow prospect analysts, Matthew Zator and Peter Baracchini. How are things going there, Matt?
Well, we're days away from the World Juniors starting, so I am, I'm happy. It's and Christmas is just around the corner, so nice to take a little bit of a break from stuff and just celebrate Christmas. But also, and then the World Juniors are day after, so yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. As we're recording this, we're exactly 1 week away from the first set of games. Granted, I believe Canada's first game starts at 5:30 a.m. Pacific time. Matt, you and I are both on Pacific time, so it could be an early morning. A little easier for you, Peter, but
yeah, very
that's
much.
Okay. We won't hold it against you. You're closer to Sweden, I guess, technically. How are you doing, Peter? Are you excited for the World Juniors?
Oh, absolutely. And I know we're going to get into it too, but at the time of recording, Canada played their first pre-tournament game against Denmark. They won 8-0. I mean, not necessarily a shock there, but you know what? I still can't wait to see what Denmark has to offer in terms of Michael Brandsegg-Nygaard being a top prospect. So,
Sorry,
yeah,
that was Norway. That was Team Norway.
Sorry, my mistake. Okay, I gotta check the notes again there. Yeah, not all in the right place right now, but yeah, actually, either way, really looking forward to this tournament, and first time in a long time that there have been Maple Leaf prospects on Team Canada, so really looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be a great tournament. I'll give you a chance to talk about those guys because I'm sure you'll have lots to say, honestly, because I think
I'll try to keep the blue-colored glasses to a minimum.
Yeah, that's right. This is time for red and white, not blue and white. Come on.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just want to mention quickly before we hop in that the Hockey Writers has recently expanded all of our content into the world of Substacks. There's a page dedicated to each NHL team, as well as one dedicated to NHL draft and prospects content. You can sign up to get all of our best prospects articles delivered right to your inbox multiple times throughout the week. And there's also a premium tier with exclusive articles, mailbags, prospect interviews, and more. You can find a sign-up link in the video description below. Check it out. All right, so we're just going to hop right in with the team that we are all the most biased towards. Although I think you guys will be able to agree that this isn't the favorite this year. It's probably going to be easy to pull back the hype a little bit. But Team Canada, we're going to start off here. This is the first time in the last few years that Canada hasn't been at least one of the favorites to win the entire tournament, since most of the best players in this age group for Canada are in the NHL right now. Connor Bedard, Adam Fantilli, Zach Benson, Kevin Korchinski. There's a lot of talent that they're leaving behind back in North America. They're going to be a good team. They always are, even in a down year. But they've left a lot. Sorry, someone started blaring Christmas music outside. I got so surprised. I'm happy for them, though. Celebration time here. Yeah, it's starting in Canada. Anyway, Canada's going to be great, as always. But I'm going to ask you guys first about someone who wasn't guaranteed to make this team when we started talking about the World Juniors in September. Seemed likely, but not a guarantee. Macklin Celebrini, 2024 draft eligible. It's not the most common for draft eligible players to make Canada, USA, Sweden the top teams. Finland as well. It's not the most common thing. Celebrini has been exceptional in college hockey this year, though. So, Peter, I'm going to come to you first here. What role do you expect Max Celebrini to play for Canada, and how successful do you think he'll be?
Well, we talk about, we are going to get to James Higgins later on about how he didn't make Team USA in just a little bit, or like a little snippet on that.
Mhm.
But Team Canada expects big things from Macklin Celebrini, and he showcased that during the training camp or development camp, where he was lights out, whether it was up the middle of the ice or on the wing. He was dynamic, and they're expecting him to be just that. Now he's slated to be a center. That's all that could possibly change. They may move him to the wing as well because they got a lot of center depth. That is for sure. But he's already slated to be in the top six. They're expecting him to be a top six performer. And, if he's able, I not necessarily say that he's going to rise up to the occasion, because we know what's expected of him and the pace that he plays, the skill that he brings, you know, the not necessarily physicality, but the way that he protects the puck with his strength. He's got the strength to defend well, come back, get another forecheck. He can do it all. And this is a player that's going to be very dynamic for Team Canada in that regard. You expect to see, big minutes on the power play with his shot. We've seen at the U18s how effective he is down low on a bad angle. He's very deceptive in that regard. Yeah, I was excited to see him play during camp. I mean, we've been watching him play all season long with Boston College, but to see him dominate, as a underager in this tournament is definitely going to be exciting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you that he's just been impressive right from the jump, both this season, but in selection camp with Team Canada, and now in their first exhibition game. I'm going to correct myself correcting you. Canada did play their exhibition game against Denmark's U25 team today.
Yes.
I just got mixed up because Michael Brandsegg-Nygaard is not on that team. He's on Norway's U20, but it's all good. Crossed wires. But yeah, Canada played them,
names,
and there's a lot of names.
Yeah.
And if you have two last names, we're just gonna mess up. I'm sorry. It's just how it is. But Celebrini had 3 points in that game. I mean, Canada kind of just rolled over them. It's kind of what you'd expect, though. But he had 3 points. From most accounts, it seems like at the selection camp, he was genuinely the best player on the ice for Canada every time he was out there, which is absurd. You don't really expect that from a 17-year-old on the young end of a 17-year-old in this draft class. Really impressive. Definitely not going to have the offensive firepower you saw from Bedard at last year's tournament. However, I think it's fair to assume he'll have more defensive value than Bedard did. He didn't really do a lot there. He kind of just counted on Joshua Waugh and Logan Stankoven, which worked perfectly. But I think it's fair to assume Celebrini could be a little bit more of a driver, a little bit more of a two-way piece. Who knows where he lands in the lineup, with Connor Geekie likely being a top six center, with someone we'll talk about, I think. Yeah, I have a question in here about him, about Matt Poitras, who just was loaned by the Boston Bruins to Team Canada. Who knows where he's going to land in the lineup. But Celebrini is certainly exciting. Matt, what are your thoughts on Celebrini making this team? What kind of role do you think he'll have?
Yeah, I think he'll, it's a good sign that he's already started. I mean, again, lower end team, but it's good he performed there, and I think he'll have I don't think he's going to have a massive role. Now that Poitras on the team now, that kind of, I don't know. They'll probably play in the bottom six. You never know though, because if he starts doing well and the coach sees that, he'll probably be bumped into the top six pretty quickly. He'll probably play on the power play as well. So I mean, I think he's going to have maybe a bigger role than expected, especially if he starts performing, because of course you're going to have a guy if he's scoring, you're going to want him playing more. So, but I have a little bit maybe like tempered expectations, because usually these guys don't, unless you're like Connor McDavid or Connor Bedard, guys like that, or Sidney Crosby. I believe Sidney Crosby did really well in the World Juniors when he was really young too. So I don't know if Celebrini is at that level, but like I say, you never know. He may surprise us.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason to compare him to someone directly. We're not gonna. it's probably more of a Shane Wright than a Connor Bedard
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this level because he's 17. He could play 2 more times this tournament. He won't. Like, if you're lucky, he might play one more, but probably not more than that. Um, that's kind of the double-edged sword of some of Canada's best prospects being so strong that the only chance they get to play at the World Juniors for Team Canada is their draft year, where maybe like Adam Fantilli, they play a pretty small role on the team
Mhm.
before exploding into the NHL right away. So a little bit of an awkward spot, but Celebrini should be a very positive force on this team, regardless of where he lands. If he's a center, maybe he gets bumped to the wing and he stays in the top six. We won't have to wait long to find out. 7 days as of now. All right. One thing that has been true for Canada, I think, going back to maybe Carter Hart, is the questions, at least, the very least, the questions going into the World Juniors about goaltending. There have been years in there where Canada's gotten great goaltending. Devin Levi stands out. But going into this year, going into selection camp, still going into the tournament starting, I have no idea who's going to start for them, who is going to be the leader in the net. It doesn't seem like they're going to get or need like excellent goaltending, but they need someone consistent. So I can't remember. I think they sent one of these guys home already. I might just have the list wrong now, but there's Mathis Rousseau, Scott Ratzlaff, Dom DiVincentis, and Samuel. Oh man, I got the name right here. Samuel Saint Hilaire, playing the Q. None of these guys are really high-end names. Maybe Scott Ratzlaff is a little more familiar of a name just from last year's draft here. Went a little earlier, but Matt, I'll come to you first. Like, did any of these goaltenders stand out to you as likely a starter, or do you think it really just comes down to maybe the first few group stage games, these exhibition games, and just who they feel gets a bit of a rhythm?
I think it's going to be more of that. I mean, none of them are having like ridiculous seasons. Ratzlaff has he's not doing very well. I mean, he's got a 3.39 goals against average, 889 save percentage. It's not just jump off the page like he was last season with his 2.15 and 918 and 5 shutouts. But the Thunderbirds they're still a good team, but they're not as good as last season because a lot of their guys have now moved on. So I mean, I think it's going to be who ends up performing the best. And that's what seems to be with Team Canada the last few seasons, last few years. It's that whoever rises to the occasion, there hasn't been like a de facto starter. Even the year that Devin Levi just ridiculous, he took over from someone. So I mean, and then just ran with it. So, I think it's just going to end up being that whoever plays better is the one that gets the net for the medal rounds when they eventually hopefully get there. I think we're expecting them to get into that area, but you never know. They're going to have someone that just makes some saves because I mean, Team Canada won't be allowing a ton of chances. They're just going to have to make the saves that they're, expected to. So we'll see who ends up taking the net.
Yeah, I agree. Like, one of the teams in this group that we'll talk about, the USA, they've got the goaltending. We'll talk about that. But Canada doesn't have the goaltending that's going to win them games. Their goalies aren't going to steal a game, most likely, unless someone pulls a Devin Levi and comes out of nowhere and just starts stealing games left and right. They just need them to not lose them games. They need their goalies to be average and keep them in games. I think it's reasonable to expect one of these goalies can do that. It's worth mentioning that Rousseau and Saint Hilaire split the start against the Danish U25 team today in the exhibition game. Both shut them out. I don't know how impressive that was. I didn't get to see the game, but I don't know if that was an impressive feat for either of them or if they didn't really have to do too much. We'll see. That'll be something to follow for the next few days here. Peter, what are your thoughts on Canada's goalie situation? Do you think anyone has a bit of a head start, or is it just comes down to your play in these pre-tournament games?
Yeah, it's definitely going to come down to play, and Saint Hilaire and Rousseau have definitely shined in the queue in a league that's known for all offense from both the front and the back end as well. So the fact that they have, decent save percentages, goals against average in a tough league that's built on offense, that's a good sign. And especially Rousseau too is 5'11". I don't know if that size factor, it shouldn't be an issue because it didn't look like that during camp. He did play his way in. Um, you know, Dom DiVincentis. He was supposed to be, one of those names to lean on, but he wasn't that great and didn't have a great camp. The other three did. So again, especially for goaltenders, it's very minimal spots that you're battling for. So you have to be on point, otherwise you're not getting it. Those three were on point and they did stand out in a big way. I have to think that, Ratzlaff might be the one that has the edge in terms of, possibly getting the nod in net. We saw what he was able to do when Thomas Milic went in last year, where he was very lights out for the Seattle Thunderbirds. He rose to the occasion, and I think he could do just that. He has an Olenka Gretzky Cup. He's represented Canada before, so they know exactly what they're getting from him as well, representing the red and white. But yeah, I think that if you have one mess up of a game, you are looking at, some time on the bench as well. Like you can't afford to give up as many bad goals like Ben Goudreau did. He looked shaky last season and Thomas Milic rose to the occasion. You got to find some consistency early on right away. But I think all three of them are up for that challenge to do so. Again, they're not elite names like Team USA has in Trey Augustine, I'm drawing a blank right now on the other ones, but I'll get
Fowler,
back to Jacob Fowler. Yeah, I kind of figured that he would be on there as well. They got elite names in net, and Canada's going to have a big battle in front, but they're going to have to rely on help from, outside of the crease as well to minimize the damage.
Yeah, I think that's something that makes this tournament so weird and fun is that best case scenario, you play 7 games. That is such a short time, and you do that in under 2 weeks. So can a goalie no one's ever heard of, like Devin Levi, who wasn't even in the CHL, come out of nowhere and be just a dominant goaltender for 4 or 5 games? Like, absolutely they can. There are tons of goalies who have that level of skill. Maybe they can't put it together for an entire season, which is why they might not be highly touted NHL prospects. But last year, Adam Gajan, Thomas Suhanik, those weren't names that people were talking about before the tournament, and they turned it out. They just dominated at last year's tournament. So you never can quite tell. You don't want to count these guys out. It's not like they're scrubs out there. Like, these are really talented goalies, and they can put it together for at very least 6-7 games. So you never know what's going to happen. It'll be something to follow for sure. It's been a weakness, at least confidence wise. It's been a weakness for Canada for quite a while here. I will actually talk about someone in my prospect of the week who could solve that for a couple years maybe, but who knows? We'll have to wait and see. You might have thought the same about Sebastian Cossa, but his track record with Team Canada was not great at the junior level. Anyway, so the big news this week for Team Canada, they had left one of their forward spots open when they announced their final roster, with the hope and a prayer that an NHL team was going to loan them one of the U20 players that they were waiting on. And while it might not be the most exciting name possible, it is important. They got Matt Poitras from the Boston Bruins, who has spent time as the second line center in Boston. But more recently, his production has slowed down a little bit. I think he was benched in a third period once, was a healthy scratch, just trying to work him into the NHL lifestyle because he's still 19. So he's officially on loan. He didn't play in that game today for Canada, just probably acclimating and getting used to the time change, stuff like that, dealing with jet lag. But Peter, I'll come to you first on this one. What kind of impact do you think this addition of Poitras is going to have here? Do you think he's going to be, high-end top 6 two-way guy? Is he going to be just absolute lockdown bottom 6 guy, kind of like looks like they're going to try to use Nate Danielson in that kind of role? What are your thoughts on Poitras joining Canada?
Yeah, it definitely creates a logjam up the middle of the ice. But considering the
Sure.
NHL experience that he has, it's very reminiscent to when Barrett Hayton came over and was on loan
Mhm.
for Canada. Although I think Poitras may have a little bit more upside. I mean, Barrett Hayton was huge, scoring some key goals, but I think you already have enough firepower for players that can shoot the puck. Poitras is more of a playmaker, drawing players in, opening the ice very much so. And now works to their advantage for guys like, guys that could shoot, like, if he's going to be on a line with, Celebrini, Raykopf, so many other guys that can bury the puck. But
Mhm.
the big thing is where he's going to end up. I have to think that he's going to be the top line center for this team. I know that, looking at, the roster projections, this is like 3 days ago too. And even they kind of went with that similar route. Uh, Connor Geeky is the top center for this team right now. I wonder if maybe they bump him down, move Celebrini up, bump Cowan down on the wing, and then you have a line of Celebrini, Poitras, and Savoy, which, I mean, you do have the high end pace of Matt Savoy, who could play and shoot the puck as well. The playmaking of Poitras, they could play that two-way game, and Celebrini. I think they could do a lot of damage. Again, that's just me spitballing ideas right now because
Mhm.
I'm just a guy talking prospects right now. I'm not on the coaching staff, but you have to wonder because he is, a natural center. That is his position. And if you have the potential to have that kind of player in your lineup, you try to work around it as best as possible. But I think he's definitely going to be a top six addition, a strong top six addition to this team if they go that route.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying there. I think, uh, it's inevitable, especially with a team like Canada or the USA, that you're going to have centers that you have to bump to the wing just
Mhm.
because growing up, players play center when you're the best player on your team. And then when they all start getting closer and closer and there's less teams and there's less spots on the team, they'll just shuffle. So even before Poitras, it was like, Geeky, Celebrini, Jaeger, Owen Beck, Nate Danielson. And that's just the guys who are like for sure centerman probably. And then there's guys who kind of have it as alternate positions sometimes. That's five guys, and then Poitras. So I don't know if Poitras is going to be the top line center, maybe the second line center behind Geeky, depending on ice time, and bump Celebrini to the wing. Maybe I'm excited to see what they do. There's a lot of depth down the middle, and they can switch it up constantly. If someone is not having a good night in the face-off dot, just put your winger in there. He plays center all the time. So who knows? It should be interesting. Matt, what are your thoughts on your fellow Matt joining Team Canada here?
Just throw all the Matthews on the one line.
All of them.
Matthew Wood, Matthew Savoy, Matthew Poitras.
Hey,
There
good
you go.
work.
Good work. Matthew, oh my gosh, I just forgot what you
Quatra?
three. But
So many
yeah,
names.
I don't know. I think Poitras will end up being in the top six. I mean, he's played really well in the NHL, and that's massive. I
Mhm.
mean, he has dropped off, like you said. But that's just going to be growing pains and stuff like that as he gets acclimated to the NHL. But he was a surprising addition. He wasn't supposed to make the team. He wasn't supposed to play in the top six in Boston,
Yeah.
but he is, or he has. And he's got some pretty good points in the NHL. I mean, 13 points in 27 games, not bad for a guy that wasn't supposed to even be on the team.
Mhm.
I think he's going to be really good for Team Canada because that experience is huge. Being able to play against NHL players that are like maybe a decade older than you,
Mhm.
and be able to play against them and score against NHL goaltenders, which is another big thing. I think he's going to end up being a big part of Canada. I don't want to say MVP or anything like that, but he's going to be a big part. So I think I mean, of course, they'd be happy to get Zach Benson as well and guys like that because he was also a possibility. But just getting Poitras is a massive thing for this team. I mean, we'll see how he does, but I think he's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think he's one of the best stories in the NHL this year so far. Just he wasn't even like in September, he was, he had a good shot at even being just on the World Junior team, but it wasn't even a guarantee for him. He did have a really great year last year, and I expected he'd build on it. Did not expect him to just jump straight into the NHL, score half a point per game, and then have to get loaned to join Canada. Just a great story. I agree. I think he'll be a pretty important player here. Um, for context, he was in the 90s when it comes to points in the OHL last year. I think it's fair to say he would have been at the very top, near the very top of the scoring leaders in the OHL this year if he'd spent the whole time there. But that pro experience, we'll see how that serves him well. There's quite a bit on Canada, although most of the players have like just little scraps, like Matthew Zator, I think just had one game. Owen Beck, I think, has one game in the NHL. And Tristan Luneau has a handful of pro games from this year, although he sat out a lot. Should be fun. I think it's a positive addition to Canada. We've talked about how they'll have to do they'll have to be better than the sum of their parts a little bit, but the sum of their parts is looking pretty good at this point. I'm not gonna lie. They don't have like a superstar, but the depth of talent here is getting a little silly. So they don't talk about them as if they're an underdog. They're just not the favorites, probably.
Yeah.
I'd say goaltending probably has a little bit to say in that and why they're there. Anyway, we'll try to wrap up this one here. So, Matt, I'll come to you first on this one. So Canada's in Group A at this tournament with Sweden, Finland, Germany, and Latvia. Where do you think Canada finishes in that group?
I'm gonna say second. Sweden's gonna win the group. We said that in the last episode. I think they're gonna end up being just ahead of Finland because I think Finland's gonna take third, but can't count out the Finns either. But I'll say second.
Okay, and Peter, what about you? Where do you think Canada finishes in Group A?
As we all know, it's going to come down to that, final matchup or whatever. So we'll see what happens then. But this is going to be, like you mentioned, this is going to be a team that's going to be like working by committee, blue collar, determined team. May not have the high end skill, but this is one that could still definitely win the group. I still think that's Sweden's spot to lose, and Canada's definitely going to finish second or be in second. So I think that's best case scenario for Team Canada, given how deep Sweden is.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, like, look at us just examining our biases and just. I also think Canada's going to be second. I mean, last week you heard us. If you were here, you heard we all think Sweden's going to win the group. Just a really, really strong team there. There's always a shot if one of these goalies, if Rousseau or St. Hilaire really starts to get hot by the time they match up in the group stage, but it feels like the safe bet is for Canada to finish second. All right, to wrap up our Canada section now, Peter, I'll start with you here. Can you give us a player to watch for Team Canada, or possibly two players, possibly from any specific team that you enjoy watch? You can do whoever you want. You don't have to do Minton and Cowan, but I was just, if you want to.
Yeah, I'm gonna look more towards the defense, and I'm gonna pick the duo from the Anaheim Ducks, Tristan Luneau and Logan Horn. Luneau, obviously, with the experience that he has, you need those puck movers from the back end. I think he's gonna be one of those guys that's gonna be leaned heavily to lead the offense and the charge in that regard, because he just didn't quite have the best draft year, but he really stood out in a big way last season, and that's why he was able to make the Anaheim Ducks. And Noah Warren, I love his two-way shutdown game. That's going to be very key, considering that, that those type of players were very heavily leaned on for Team Canada to get into the lanes, block shots. So you had like Ethan Del Mastro, Tyson Hines, Nolan Allen and Jack Mateer do a lot of that heavy lifting with the defensive work last season. I think Noah Warren's going to be a big part of that in leading the group defensively within their own zone with the hits, with the block shots, and even getting on the offense too. He's very underrated with his mobility.
Yeah, it's fun that the Anaheim Ducks, they're just like the new defense factory. Like the Nashville Predators used to be that in the NHL. It feels like that's the Ducks now, because feels like every single year there's one or two really solid defensemen on Team Canada specifically, it feels like, that are just going straight to the Ducks. They're just going straight from junior to the Ducks. And that's not even including Pavel Mintyukov, who's been great in the NHL this year. So I agree. I think Luneau and Warren are going to be big pieces for Canada here, and for the Ducks in the future, probably, at least Luneau. Matt, what about you? Who's a player to watch for Team Canada?
well, guess who it is going to be? Matthew Wood. He's having another great season in the NCAA. Got 12 points in 17 games, and he's coming off that great performance at the under 18s where he dominated and had 13 points in 7 games and 7 goals. So I'm anticipating him to have a really good tournament. I said that at the beginning of the under 18s, and he started off slow, and I'm like, maybe I'm going to be wrong. Then he turned it up and then got the 7 goals in 7 games. So hopefully he does the same thing. He's got tons of talent, and where the Nashville Predators picked him 15th overall. I said, I can't remember where I was saying, I think around the 10-11 was where I said Wood should go. But yeah, keep an eye on Matthew Wood again, because I think he's going to have a good tournament.
Yeah, I think that's a fair expectation. I'm also going to go with someone a little lower in the lineup. It's just wild to see him so low, but I completely understand it. And that's Nate Danielson, who looks to be a fourth liner for Canada, not because he's been bad this year, although his point totals aren't very inspiring. He's looked really great in most of the stuff I've watched the Wheat Kings this year, and seeing him in the NHL preseason where he looked borderline NHL ready. So dropping him with Owen Beck, and who knows who will be the other winger now that Poitras has joined the team. They might bump someone out and shuffle around a little. But Beck and Danielson just seem like an absolute pain to play against. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if they go up against top 6 lines against tough competition. Like, if that Djurgårdens line that we talked about last week for Sweden, if they're together, like, I wouldn't be shocked to see Danielson and Beck out there just trying to shut them down. That feels like the kind of role that line is built for. And I think they will be really well suited to that. Danielson has more offense than the numbers show, both in terms of producing for teammates and for himself. So watch out for him. He could be more impressive than you expect from a fourth liner. Tends to happen every once in a while because you forget that these guys are first liners every day of the week in the juniors. So, all right. That is all we'll do for Team Canada here. We'll take a quick break and hop back in with Team USA. But first, I just want to reiterate the Hockey Writers has expanded into the world of Substacks with pages for each NHL team, as well as one for prospects and draft, NHL draft content. You can sign up to get all of our best prospect articles delivered directly to your inbox multiple times throughout the week. And there's also a premium tier for exclusive articles, mailbags, prospect interviews, and more. You can find a sign up link in the video description below. Check it out. All right, we're going to jump back in with Team USA here. As usual, Team USA has a ton of offensive talent this year, as well as great defensive group highlighted by Lane Hudson. And we'll talk about their goaltending a little bit as well, where they have 2 great options in a pair of freshmen in college hockey who are just destroying college hockey, Jacob Fowler and Trey Augustine. But we're going to start with their forwards. And I'm going to talk about their projected top line. I'm sure they'd love to have Logan Cooley on this top line, but he is in the NHL. So they can feel a little bit of Canada's pain, missing out on Fantilli, Benson, Bedard, Korchinski, all that, by missing Logan Cooley. But I think they'll be fine because the top line of Rutger McGroarty, Cutter Gauthier, and Jimmy Snuggerud looks borderline dominant. They look kind of unfair because these 3 players last year combined for 30 points at the World Juniors. There are 7 games in the World Juniors, and they had 30 points, these 3 players combined, which is just absurd. So, Matt, I'll start with you here. What are your expectations for this top line? Do you think they'll get 30 points again?
And they definitely have a chance to. I think they will. They're just so talented. It's insane. And I mean, that's just their top line. And there's so many more guys that you can talk about. But yeah, they're going to be exciting to watch. And the thing is they're all guys that have played at this level, at, Team USA, at the, USHL. They've all dominated there. Obviously Cooley would have been awesome to be on the team too, but he's doing awesome in the NHL. So of course, Arizona's not going to want to give him up. I mean, they could have. He's not like dominating the league. I mean, he could go, but obviously They didn't. Yeah, this top line's still going to be good, even without Cooley. Cutter Gauthier's a excellent prospect. He's one of those guys that I think is going to end up being a really dominant top 6 guy in the NHL, maybe in the next couple of years. Same with Snuggerud. He's going to be a dominant winger for the St. Louis Blues. And that was after we were like, why was he rated so high in that draft? We were saying that he should be going a little lower and all that, but I mean, not anymore. I think he's ending up to be definitely as advertised so far. And McGroarty, we've talked tons about him, and he's going to be an excellent player in the NHL too. So all three, they're going to dominate this tournament, and I would expect them to get around maybe that 30-point mark again, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's a really high bar to set, but it's a testament to their skill that it's not out of the question by any means for them to repeat it, because they're all a year older and a year stronger, a year bigger. So maybe they'll score more than 30. I do also want to mention McGroarty just like a month ago or so had a really scary injury in the NCAA. It was unclear if he was going to play. He was in a non-contact jersey for selection camp, but made the team kind of on like a hopefully he's healthy by the time games start, but it looks all clear. And it looks like McGroarty's going to be on that top line. Very, very good chance he wears a C, I would say, for Team USA. That is the personality he has, is the reputation he has built. Go listen to any interviews with him in his draft year or since, and you can tell he's a really great character. He's just a born leader. He's going to be that in the NHL, but probably this year as well. Peter, what are your thoughts on this top line? What kind of expectations do you have for them for Team USA?
Yeah, no Logan Cooley, no problem for this line.
Yeah.
I mean, even if Logan Cooley did make the team and he wasn't on this line is still probably going to generate 30 points because of that power, the strength, the intensity that they play with every single shift. You know, you talked about Rucker McGroarty's ability to be a strong leader, and that was the one thing that I took from him when I interviewed him in his scrum at the combine in his draft year, and he prides himself on being a leader on and off the ice and doing whatever it takes to win. And you see that he has that killer instinct in his game with that power forward mentality, the booming shot, and you see the work ethic that all three possess. And Cutter Gauthier, Jimmy Snuggerud, they all go in, they all create opportunities for themselves and their teammates. They're always doing whatever it takes to take advantage of a situation, and they're always so dominant. So, yeah, they got 30 points last year. Snuggerud had 13, Gauthier had 10. McGroarty, I think, was maybe a little bit lower in the lineup. Maybe he was playing more of a middle six role than the other two when they were on the top line. But yeah, I definitely expect McGroarty to up that point totals. If Snuggerud and Gauthier are going to be double digits again, he's going to join them for sure.
Yeah, he was a little lower in the lineup with Cooley, obviously, on that top line. But it feels like, shuffle them around a little bit, but I don't think they'll be missing too much. I think if they don't hit 30 points, it's probably just because Cooley's not there to just get like free zone entries every time he touches the puck. But they're pretty good on their own. I think they'll be fine, especially on the power play, like you guys mentioned. All right. One thing we've been hinting at, so let's just talk about it, is the stark contrast between the USA and Canada is their goaltending. The USA has two great options in Augustine and Fowler. They are both freshmen in college hockey, and they are really great. Like, Augustine has been better than you would expect a freshman to be as a full-time starter, but Fowler has been like one of the best goaltenders in college hockey as a freshman, starting all of the games for his team, his school, which is just absurd. Augustine had a lot more experience with USA Hockey. He was the starter at last year's World Juniors when he was 17. So, Peter, I'm going to come to you first on this one. Who do you think gets more starts in this tournament? Maybe who gets the first start, whoever gets more throughout, because Fowler has the better recent track record, but Augustine has more experience with this kind of environment. How would you evaluate that balance there?
I think that you got to start off with Augustine because of what you said, that experience. He dominated the U18 level. He looked good last season. Then again, he didn't get much help from the defense because the defense was a little bit more mobile and offensively minded. So he was left to hang and dry a few times. You would expect him to come in with a different mindset and be a little bit more sharp and dialed in to, make up or atone from last year, where maybe he would like to have been better at certain moments as well. But I still think that he is a starter going in. And that's not to discount Fowler at all. I mean, this is a guy that definitely shot up many draft boards, got notice on many people's radars. And what he's doing this season in the USHL, both are lighting it up right now in terms of, goals against, save percentages, winning games for their teams. These are two guys that are difficult to get pucks by them. And when they're on their game, they're some of the toughest ones to beat at this level. So do expect Augustine to start. Maybe Fowler's going to be the backup most likely in that situation, but you got a really dynamic two-headed or, dynamic duo in the crease where even if US rotates, it doesn't matter because it's going to be tough to get pucks by them.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like that's just kind of it's got to be a boost to your confidence if you're a player on Team USA. Just knowing that should things start to go south a little bit, there is another goaltender who is equally as talented. And you're in good hands. You don't have to worry about your goalies. Matt, what are your thoughts on that tandem of Fowler and Augustine? Who do you think will get more starts here?
Yeah, I think Augustine gets the leg up just because of his international experience and what he's done already. But Fowler's been, like you said, really good in the NCAA. So whoever you go with, I think the US is going to have a good option. I think throughout the pre medal rounds and all that, I think it's going to be a rotation. They're just going to
Sure.
see who does better. And then once the medal rounds come and you're in those, gold medal game or whatever, into the semifinals and the quarterfinals and stuff like that, I think they're going to pick one and play them more. But to start, I think it's going to be just a rotation, see who's playing better, and then just go with the hot hand once the games start mattering. But I mean, you pick one, I think you're going to be a pretty good one.
Should be okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree. Augustine probably at least gets a little bit longer of a leash to start the tournament. I think it's an underappreciated thing with goaltenders, just comfortability with your teammates. And Augustine has played with most of his teammates here for the last, well, not this year, but last year, the year before. He spent a lot of time with this same group, with some of these defensemen, lots of these forwards. He's very comfortable with them, and that does matter, both in the way that the team kind of can work around their goalie and feel strongly about their goalie, but also their goalie knows what their defensemen are going to do, why they're closing out the way they are, what they're going to do with the puck behind the net, anything like that. Like just little things you can pick up on. It's not the be all end all. You ultimately have to stop pucks. That's your job. But having that comfortability, that level of chemistry in a different way than normally you hear about hockey players, is valuable. So I think Augustine, he's been under this spotlight. He's been on this big of a stage before. I think he probably gets the first shot at it, at winning the spot. But Fowler's an excellent choice as well. So who knows who's going to get it, to be honest. I want to talk about some snubs for Team USA, because when you have a team this good players miss out. So there's the big one in Hunter Brstevich, who I will let Matt talk about if he can get through it without crying, because that's an insane one. There's other already drafted players like Charlie Stramel, Quentin Musty, and then there's non-drafted players, Cole Eiserman, James Hagens. They did not make the team. So what are your thoughts on these snubs? Anyone in particular that stands out? Matt, I'll let you go first here.
I almost rage quit.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah,
Show's over.
When I saw the selection camp roster and Brstevich wasn't on it, I'm like, did they forget about this guy? Like he's He's dominating the OHL. Like he's got 55 points in 34 games, still on pace for 110 points this season. I like what more can he do to say, I mean, I'm good enough to be on Team USA?
Yeah.
I mean, there was talk that he's not good defensively. They didn't want he's more offense and defense. Maybe true, but you need in a tournament like this, goal scoring is big, and that's something he does, and not just scoring but facilitating. He's got 48 assists, and that's insane. I think he leads the CHL in assists. I'm pretty sure, but it's like to get the puck to some of these real skilled forwards, he's really good at it. And not like USA doesn't have those guys. They got Lane Hudson. They got guys that can do that. But Brstevich is just he deserves to be on the team. I don't understand. But
Yeah.
that's their choice. I mean, even if I was expecting to at least be on the selection camp roster. I mean, yes, he may not make the team, but they didn't even give him a chance to.
Didn't even bring him to camp.
So whatever. He'll just keep dominating the OHL, and if US doesn't win a medal, and I'll just say, well, you should have had Brstevich on the team. Maybe you have a better chance. But yeah,
yeah, it feels like one of those classic cases of Hockey Federation politics, because Brstevich was in the NTDP, moved out of that because he didn't have a big enough role to the OHL in his draft year. And he's succeeded in the OHL and he's stayed in the OHL. And so sometimes there's a little bit of behind the scenes bitterness, and sometimes that makes a difference. And so if it's an iffy choice, it makes it easier for them to kind of lean no, probably. Like you said, Matt, like Seamus Casey, Lane Hudson are on the team. So the undersized offense, primarily offensive defensemen, are well represented. But it seems still a little insane that he didn't at least get an invite. It feels like the Twilight Zone. I don't know what's going on. Peter, what about you? Any snubs for Team USA that stand out?
Yeah, I was about to say maybe it's the whole like USA, US NTDP versus OHL kind of thing. But then again, Gavin Hayes never played for the NTDP and he made the team. Kerry Terrance, he plays for the Erie Otters. He made it too. So it's kind of like, all right, they're getting OHL players or players playing in the OHL, but then you have like someone like Quentin Mussey who should have been on the team or, on the selection camp last year, given his power forward like game, given his skill, his shot, the playmaking and everything like that. Yeah, I still think Brstevich is the one name that stands out, but you want to see what they want to do with that defense core because they try to rely on the puck movement a little bit too much in the offensive mindedness. And I talked about this previously in regards to the goaltending. They want to have a little bit more steadiness on the back end. Like you have Lane Hudson and Seamus Casey doing the heavy lifting offensively. You have the two-way presence of Zeev Buium on there. Eric Polkomp, I believe he has a bit more of a steady defensive foundation to his game. I'm a big fan of Ryan Chesley for some time right now. He was on the team last year, so I think maybe he would like a chance at redemption as well, with to be a bit, not necessarily a bit more of a factor, but to lead this D core a little bit more as well, because he's a punishing physical two-way defender as well. Very smart and getting into the lane. So I think they maybe wanted to go a different direction with that. But if it comes down to Casey, Hudson, and Brstevich, who are you actually going to pick in that moment? Difficult choice. I agree with that. Maybe he should have at least just get the invite to see what he can do. If he doesn't perform well, okay, well now you already know what you got. But it seems like there's always some questionable choices. We saw that with Team Canada's roster, seeing that with US. James Hagens, I thought he would have made the team, but if he's not going to crack the top six, no sense in putting him there. Yzerman kind of seems a little bit one-dimensional at this point, but he's dominated U18 tournaments before too with his goal scoring. Maybe they wanted a little bit more of a group mentality with this team as well. So yeah, couple of snubs. I think Brstevich is still the big one, but Team USA made their decision and they got to stick by that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with those. I think Hagens was a bit of a surprise not to make the team, but it does make sense for incredibly dynamic skater, offensive guy. If he's not going to fit in your top 6 just based on who you're planning to put there, probably doesn't make sense to have him on the team because he'll be an option next year, him and Cole Iserman. Quentin Musty, I thought should be on the team, almost 2 points per game in the OHL, power forward type guy. He is eligible for the tournament again next year, so I think it can be forgiven. However, I also think there's a chance he's a San Jose Sharks prospect, so there's a chance he's in the Sharks' top 6 next year. Who knows?
Yeah.
Like a pretty decent chance, I would say, honestly. So he might not actually have another chance, and I think he would have been a solid option here, especially for a team that's lacking size a little bit, especially on defense, but at forward as well. I would have thought 6'2" Quentin Musty would be something they'd be all over, but yeah, they've got tons of talent. They'll be fine, probably. Really good team, as we've been talking about here. So same question as with Canada, just a different group. USA is in Group B with Czechia, Slovakia, Norway, and Switzerland. I'm not even going to ask you where you think they're going to land. I'm just going to ask you, do you think they win the group or not? Matt, what do you think?
I think they win the group. I mean, the other teams, I'd say maybe Czechia could have, potential chance to upset it, but US just is so strong. I feel like they're gonna. I don't know about run away with the group, but I think they're gonna have a real good lead over the other guys. I think they win.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's a fair point. Czechia has Yuri Kulich, who should probably be in the NHL right now, who scored 10 points last year, a goal a game in this tournament. And if there's any question mark on Team USA, it's their defense, just with a lot of offensively minded guys, not a lot of size on the back end there, aside from 1 or 2 players. So who knows? Maybe there's a leak there, and a team like Czechia can exploit it. Peter, what are your thoughts? Do you think USA wins Group B? Where do you think they land?
Oh yeah, by a long shot. But that isn't to say that we've seen how competitive Czechia can be in the past, giving Canada a run, giving other teams a big run. So there's one team to upset and dethrone the States. It is definitely going to be Czechia at this point. But again, on paper, depth-wise, Team USA is by far the runaway, similar to Sweden. But we'll see what happens when tournament rolls around, because we've seen upsets and, things happen randomly at times. And I'm not necessarily saying that Slovakia is one to possibly make upsets, but they do have some good depth and players on their roster too. Is it enough to overpower USA? Not so much as Czechia, but we'll see what happens. But I think USA definitely won, but Czechia is the one team in that group that can give them a run.
Yeah, I agree. They're probably the most likely to push the USA a little. They won silver last year, and they earned it. They made Canada work for that goal all the way to overtime. I will say, though, Slovakia, they've got Samuel Honzek down the middle. They've got Adam Gajan in net again. If he can go crazy like he did last year, just play out of his mind, they'll be in every single game they play. So anything could happen, but I think the safe pick once again is USA to win this group, probably handily, to be honest. All right, quickly before we go to our prospect of the week and wrap up, I'm going to ask you guys players to watch for Team USA, aside from all of the players we talked about, because they're all exciting to watch. But Matt, who is your player to watch for Team USA?
I'm going to go with another one of my favorites from the 2023 draft, and that's Gavin Brindley. He's, again, a Connor Garland type player, work ethic, can play all over your lineup, and be really annoying to play against because of his speed and his motor and his forechecking, and just gets in your face. And he can score. He's got 10 goals in 18 games in the NCAA, 2 away from the 12 he scored in 41 last season. So I think he's shattering that total. He's on pace. I don't want the on pace numbers. Elite Prospects doesn't do it for the NCAA for some reason, but he's on pace to go way above those 12 that he scored in his draft year. So watch out for Brindley. I think he's in these types of tournaments, those types of players really make a difference. So I would keep an eye out for him. He's exciting to watch, and I love him. So he's playing for the Blue Jackets as a team, or not playing for the Blue Jackets, but he will be playing for the Blue Jackets in the future. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that he'll have this level of success, but reminiscent of a Logan Stankoven at this same tournament at the same age, I suppose. I think you could have a similar impact. Just play wherever you need him, play with whoever you need him to, and just provide energy and puck possession whenever he's on the ice, basically. Good pick there. Peter, what about you as a player to watch for Team USA?
My player to watch is Frank Nazar. I definitely he had a really rotten luck in terms of missing games and injury last season. Managed to come back. He's at a point per game pace right now, 18 points in 18 games with the University of Michigan. But the fact that that top line is solidified, you're looking at him possibly being a second line player with the dynamicism that he could play with, the speed and the pace, the hands, everything coming together. He can make moves at he makes it the most difficult moves that he can make look so simple when he's on the ice, and you're just in shock and awe at what he can do with the puck. He's not just thinking one or two steps, but three or four ahead of the opposition and what his next move is going to be. He's, a very strong distributor and puck facilitator, drawing players in and just absolutely fooling them. So Team USA is already loaded offensively. He's one player that can definitely have an impact and be an offensive dynamo for this team with his playmaking abilities alone. And I'm going to give another quick shout out to Carey Terrance from the Erie Otters. This season, 22 points, 22 goals with the Otters, closing in on the 30 that he scored last season, the second round pick of the Anaheim Ducks. I'm a big fan of his. This guy is, a very, very strong goal scorer. Can score in bunches, can score in a variety of different ways, in tight, out from afar with a shot, getting to the middle of the ice. He is a very strong power forward. He's got the size, got the hands. He could just like Nazar with his playmaking, he could do some damage with his goal scoring. Maybe in a bottom six role for Team USA, given the depth that they have, but he could probably score some very key goals for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a testament to the quality of this team that we've gone this whole section on Team USA without mentioning the NTDP line from last year of Smith, Perreault, and Leonard, who are on this team. That is just an established line. You can just drop wherever you need them in the lineup. And I'm not going to talk about them, which is fun. Because my player to watch for Team USA is Danny Nelson, who is someone that we didn't know what to do with last year. Nobody knew what to do with him. He was a defenseman turned center, and he was really big, but hadn't really put stuff together. And it was like, will he? I don't know. And it looks positive so far this year. I believe he's with Notre Dame. He has 14 points in 18 games, which is really solid for someone who we weren't sure if he had offense at the next level. Looks possible now. It looks more likely than 6 months ago. He's 6'3". He's probably going to be on the fourth line for Team USA. Granted, the third line and second line are just absurdly talented, so good players go on the fourth once again. Danny Nelson's someone to watch. I think he's got the size. He's solid defensively because he used to play defense, and could be a real difference maker, even if he's not playing huge minutes. But someone to pay attention to for Team USA. All right, we're going to wrap up the show as we always do. Thanks for sticking around with us with our prospects of the week. And yeah, it looks like we've got a clean sweep for the WHL this week. This was not planned or anything, but just the numbers are really exciting. There's a lot of high numbers out of the WHL to start this year. It's hard to avoid. So Matt, I'll start with you first here. Who's your prospect of the week?
I'm going to go with that. We talk about snubs. What about Riley Heidt?
Sure.
He didn't make Team Canada. And he's got 63 points in 31 games. And he's tied for the first in WHL scoring right now. In the 17 goals, he's close. Like he had 25 last season. I think he's going to have more than 25 this season. I had a 5-assist game on the 15th. 5 assists, had 2 goals and an assist in his last game. Yeah, the Minnesota Wild, we were saying, why the heck did he drop so far? He dropped almost to the third round, and the Wild got him there. I mean, Wild are, I don't know if they're going to be a playoff team this season, but they always seem to be a playoff team, yet they're getting prospects like this. And he could end up being that long. Well, Marco Rossi looks like the long lost top line center that they've been waiting for now, finally. But he could end up being a really good, he's a center winger. But we'll see what he does in the NHL at that point. But yeah, he's just been phenomenal this season to start, and on pace for 134 points. So coming off that 97-point season, he had a really good season last season too, but he could break the 100-point barrier here. But yeah, Riley Heidt, prospect of the week for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Last pick of the second round is still absurd, and I will not forgive any NHL team for avoiding him for that long. For myself, my prospect of the week, I'm going with one of Height's teammates, Joshua Ravensbergen, who is a goaltender for the Prince George Cougars, not eligible until the 2025 draft. We've been talking about how the last few drafts haven't really had any standout goaltenders, and Ravensbergen looks like that early on here. An 18 starts so far in the WHL this year. He has a .934 save percentage and 6 shutouts. He's 6'4". He looks really solid in the crease. I mean, obviously you play on a powerhouse like this Cougars team that's just scoring an absurd amount of goals. And your numbers will probably look pretty good. But it hasn't only been them, and he is 17. So even if you're a 17-year-old goalie who looks dominant on a great team, I don't think that means that you're only good because your team is good. He's someone to pay attention to for the rest of this year if the Cougars can go on a bit of a run through the WHL playoffs, but definitely someone that I expect to talk about a lot next year. It would be lovely to have a good goaltender to talk about in our draft conversations. It's been a while. Peter, I'll come to you last here. Who is your prospect of the week?
It's been a while since I probably said his name. Cayden Lindstrom from the Medicine Hat Tigers. Obviously, like the last 3 games stand out for him. You know, he's got 3 goals, 3 assists for 6 points in those 3 games, but it's what led up to it that's even more impressive. He's on a 12-game point streak, 8 multi-point games in that span. And overall in the WHL, he ranks 4th in goals already with 27, tied with Jager Furcus in that regard. So, you know, this is a guy that's I'm really, really high on it. The more that I see, like, you know, top 10, top 5, top 3 for Cayden Lindstrom right now, I'm just beaming with absolute joy right now, because this is the guy that has the whole entire package offensively: the size, the shot, the speed, and the skating. He's so well diverse in that aspect. You're trying to develop that playmaking ability as well. Very underrated, but it's coming with time. But when you have a player that can, shield the puck as well as he does and use that size to his advantage and be dominant every single shift, that to me is impressive. And it's a big reason why he's one of my favorite prospects in this class, as well as my prospect of the week.
Nice. Great pick. He's been really hot lately. I agree. It makes a lot of sense now that we're seeing him in draft rankings and draft conversations, just scooting up. Relatively quiet around him in September. Not a ton of people were talking about him. And that has changed very quickly. I think he's well deserving of at least a top 10 pick, but based on what I know about NHL teams and what they like about size and speed and really talented players, I think it's safe to say he's going to go even higher than that.
They go second behind Celebrini.
Honestly, very, very possible.
Yeah.
I'm probably shooting for the moon there, but
it's possible.
What is it? It's December still. We'll come back to this in a little over 6 months. I think that'll age pretty
May.
well, honestly. Not that bad. All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in to another episode. Can you tell we're excited about the World Juniors? Make sure you subscribe to the Hockey Writers YouTube channel to make sure you catch all of our new episodes. We'll have more during the tournament, and following we'll have lots of lots to talk about there. So make sure you check in. And also check out our NHL Draft and Prospect Substack to stay caught up on all the new prospects content across the site. There's a link in the description below. Thank you, Matt and Peter, as always. And thank you all for joining us on this week's episode of Prospect Corner. We'll see you next time.